Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome into the Vegas Insider YouTube channel. We have a very special edition of the Daily Insider today. I'm Thom Cunningham. We are joined by our soccer betting expert, Toby Maxtone-Smith, to go over the Euro 2020. I know it's 2021, but this was an event that was scheduled to take place last year, but due to the pandemic, they pushed everything back. So we are going to break down the best bets, predictions, player props, everything you need to know for this year's Euro Championships, and I'm joined now by Toby. Toby, how are you? And are you ready for Friday?
Yeah, massively. It's going to be brilliant. It's been 3 full years without a proper tournament since the last World Cup. It was awful to have it postponed last year. Really ruined that summer. And yeah, it's brilliant that it's back. Yeah, can't ask for anything more really.
So, looking through these teams, this is now what the second time we're going to have 24 teams in the Euros. I believe the first time was in 2016. And in that, we saw, what was it, Portugal? They ended up winning the whole thing. I know you went through a list of contenders in our VegasInsider.com preview for the Euros. You can check out on our website. So Portugal is a contender. What are your thoughts on Portugal repeating this year? Do you like their chances? I've seen they've reached the semifinals in 4 of the last 5 European events, or at this event in particular. What are your thoughts on Portugal entering?
Well, Portugal have been a very funny international team over the last 20 years because they've had some very, very good teams, kept hitting semi-finals, quarterfinals, and then actually in 2016, they were pretty weak by Portugal standards. It was probably the worst team they've ever put out. And they ended up hitting the jackpot despite finishing third in their group. They drew their first 5 games and then beat one in the semi-final and then won in extra time in the final. They've got a really tough group. They've got France and Germany in their group. But I think having come third and in their group and won it last year, in last edition, they won't really care about topping that group. It'll just be about getting through it. And I think they're a really good knockout team. Their prices come in loads because quite a few Portuguese players, so Bruno Fernandes, Ruben Dias, João Cancelo, have all really impressed in England this year. So people are kind of wise to them, and they're not as big a price as they would usually be. They're, I think, 9-1, but definitely contenders.
Now, you mentioned Germany and France in their group. I think a lot of people are referring to this as the group of death or the kiss
Yeah,
of death group. Now, Germany, unbelievable success in this event. Germany, they've reached the semifinals in 3 straight Euro events, but they haven't had a title in those 3 spans. They've also reached the semis in 9 of the last 12, if you want to go way back into this tournament's
yeah.
history. So what are your thoughts on Germany? Again, they're in one of the toughest groups, if not the toughest group this year. What's your take on the Germans?
Well, we have the odd thing with this competition that because it's being held all over Europe, home advantage is a much bigger thing in the group stage, and Germany benefit from that more than almost anyone. They play all 3 of their games in a really tough group in Munich. So they've got 3 home games, which will massively help them in that group. And given that I think everyone will beat Hungary in that group, I think they'll be fine getting through. They do seem to be on the decline a little bit. I think they were probably the best team at Euro 2016, lost to France quite unluckily in the semi-final. This is Joachim Löw's last tournament as manager. I don't think they're quite going to go out on a high. He's recalled a couple of kind of very experienced players in Mats Hummels and Thomas Müller, done very well at tournaments, in the past, but there's not quite the depth coming through in Germany that there has been. And they had some pretty terrible results recently. They lost 6-0 to Spain. Not a brilliant Spain side either in the Nations League. They lost 2-1 at home to North Macedonia. Of course, a bit of a freak. North Macedonia scored pretty much their only chance of the match. But their form isn't great. However, as you said, Germany are the kings of this competition. Even if they don't always win it, they're always there or thereabouts, constantly have a habit of making semi-finals and finals, even when you don't really fancy their team. So definitely want to keep an eye on, but I think what I'd be avoiding in the betting.
Now, France is the betting favorite right now this event. Everyone is very high on France winning this tournament. They're in the group we just mentioned with Germany and Portugal. France has reached at least the quarterfinals in 5 of the last 6 Euros. I know you like France to win the group and to possibly win this entire thing. What's your take on France? They do seem to be the strongest roster entering the Euros this year.
That's the thing. I mean, you can go in circles about the draw. They've got a difficult draw. but that's all factored into the price. You know, if they had a normal draw, they would be 3-1. You know, and I think in the end, you're just looking at which squad has the fewest weaknesses, which squad is the strongest, has the most depth. And I look at France, and I can't really pick many holes in them at all. You know, they've got an unbelievably good front three with obviously Mbappe, it's everyone's talking about, but Benzema coming back is a massive upgrade on Olivier Giroud. And people forget about Griezmann. Griezmann hasn't done brilliantly for Barcelona, but he's a real tournament specialist. He won the Best Player Award and the Golden Boot at the last Euros. Really turns up for France.
Yeah,
You know,
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you brought up Griezmann, and I was just going to say, he scored 6 goals in 7 matches.
Yeah.
And to put that in perspective, Ronaldo has 9 goals in 21 matches at this event.
I think Griezmann's a really nice. We'll get on to top goal scorer bet soon, I imagine. But Griezmann's a really nice price in that market because there are a lot of other France players who take up a big share, and it's kind of still unclear who will take penalties for France. Griezmann took them at the last Euros. And yeah, I think he's very much in the frame to surprise people again.
And the fact France hasn't won this event since 2000, but like I said, they've been to the quarterfinals, a minimum of the quarterfinals, 3 times since then. Does France not winning in over a decade, that doesn't worry you too much about this?
Not too much. I mean, they were quite, you know, they were a lot better than they were on home soil in 2016 when Benzema was still out. Mbappe was kind of very up and coming at the time. I don't think he was even in the squad actually. Kante was only just becoming the kind of sensation that we now know he is. You know, they got very near. They conceded an extra time winner in a fairly kind of even match to Portugal. It doesn't worry me too much. I think, you know, different generations. France won the last World Cup. They are winners.
Should we be watching Spain? They've won 2 of the last 3.
Yeah, Spain are a really interesting prospect because they're a lot younger than they have been in the past. Xavi is gone, Iniesta has gone, Alonso has gone, Sergio Ramos hasn't been called up, there's no Piqué. So it's a very, very different looking Spain team. And they will be interesting because there are lots of questions really over their starting 11. But there's huge potential in the team. Got some really good sort of Pedri has been a brilliant midfielder for Barcelona. He's one to look out for if he starts. My concern with them would be I'm not sure they've got a great centre forward.
Okay. Let's go to the player props. We mentioned Griezmann, and you wanted to bring up his price in the player prop department. So for Antoine Griezmann bettors, or even people who fancy France at all, what would your take be around Griezmann and player prop betting? Would you take him for most goals scored? Would you take him for player of the tournament? Would you take him for both, like he won in 2016? What's your take on Griezmann in the player prop betting department?
I think he's a player that the manager Deschamps really likes, and he's probably the low now of that front three, probably has the lowest profile just because Mbappe is such a sensation and Benzema coming back is a big story. But having, as you said, scored 6 and 7 at Euro 2016, he might well be taking penalties. I think he takes free kicks as well. I think he's just been a little bit underrated in that market and isn't taking up a big enough share of it. I'm not sure I would back him to be player of the tournament. I would have another France player in that market, which is Kante.
Okay.
But I think on top goal scorer, and indeed top France goal scorer, he might be quite a nice bet.
And he's also the only, he's the first player to score over 5 goals in the Euro tournament since Michel Platini in 1984. He had 9 goals in 5 matches.
Yeah.
That's insane. Now, I noticed in terms of active players, Ronaldo's at the top of the list. He scored 9 goals in 21 matches, as we brought up. Ibrahimovic has scored 6 goals in 13 matches. Are there any players that you like that could challenge Antoine Griezmann for the most goals scored in this tournament?
My best bet in this market is actually Lukaku. I mean, this is a big market with lots of, you can have some very nice each way bets at big prices. So I wouldn't discourage anyone from throwing darts at 4 or 5 players here. I think, it's a nice market. I really like Lukaku here because he is brilliant. I mean, he's coming off the two best seasons of his career at Inter Milan. He scored 23 and 24 in the league for them. He's an absolute gunman at international level. He's Belgium's record goal scorer, takes their penalties as well. And Belgium are in quite a kind group, and he really does kind of pillage against the weaker teams. And at the last World Cup, I tipped him up, and he ended up getting 4 in his first 2 games against Tunisia and Panama. You know, 2 weak teams at that World Cup. You know, I'm looking at Belgium's games against Finland, Russia. You know, I'm pretty sure that Lukaku will score a few there. And then there's also the thing that Belgium's other options, there are good reasons to swerve them a little bit, because Hazard's been in terrible form for a couple of years now for Real Madrid. De Bruyne picked up an injury in the Champions League final, so it's unclear whether he'll start the first game. It all points to Lukaku. And I think if you're pro-Belgium, I think a better way to back them is just to have Lukaku winning the Golden Boot.
And you brought up Belgium's group, and we're going to get to that in a minute when we go over the group stages. But Harry Kane, I see, is at the top of the list. He's arguably, outside of Mbappe, the most popular player in this tournament, I would say. Maybe Lewandowski as well. But Lewandowski's 22-1 to be the top goal scorer. Harry Kane is the favorite. Do you fancy either of those two popular players?
I mean, I think Kane is the rightful favourite. You know, he's definitely a strong runner. He won it at the World Cup. He did, however, score 3 penalties at that World Cup. And so there is a lot of variance there. And I would, you know, VAR went mad with penalties at the last World Cup. You never know what it's going to be like at this one. They could tone it down a little bit. And the problem with backing Kane is that there's actually a very good chance that England, who have a pretty good team this year, will go out at the last 16. Because even if they win their group, they possibly play France or Germany. Right. And even, you know, a good England team can still very easily lose to them. So with Kane, there's a good possibility that you're only going to have 4 games, which is why I'd avoid him.
Okay, that makes a ton of sense. I like that. Now going to the group betting, you mentioned Belgium's in a weak group, and I look at their group, and I think Denmark, a lot of people are overlooking. Russia, Finland, yeah, I could easily see Belgium getting by those 2 teams. When I look at Belgium's history at this event, though, they don't do particularly well. They reached the quarterfinals in 2016, but 1980 was the last time they got out of the group stage before that. So I ask you, with the injury that Belgium also has with one of their best players right now, what is your take on them in the group? Are they keen to be upset on? Do you like their chances even if they get to the knockout rounds? Because there's a lot going on with Belgium right now in terms of their current injury status and just what they've done in this tournament in the history.
I mean, I wouldn't look too much at Belgium's sort of deep past, because this is a golden generation. This is the best generation they have had and ever will have, probably. And they are coming to the end. They're by far the most experienced team in terms of number of caps across the whole tournament. I like them to win this group because I think they are reliable against weaker opposition. Denmark will be a difficult match because Denmark, they're going to be playing in Copenhagen. Denmark are a nice team. I just think the price might have gone on them. But I do fancy Belgium to get through the group. I think they will, to win the group, really. I think they'll win the group. I think they might come unstuck later on because their defence is kind of aging. You've still got Alderweireld and Vertonghen, who were great for Tottenham 3 years ago, but are now aging a bit slower. They won't be able to push as high up the pitch as they have been. And I think if they played France, I would be pretty strong on France beating them, for example.
Now in Group C, you only have 3 nations that have not made it out of the group stage ever. That is the Ukraine, North Macedonia, and Austria. And when obviously round of 16, there used to be only 16 teams in this tournament. So kind of going with that as well. These are 3 teams that have never gotten out of group stage or passed the round of 16 in this event. They're grouped in with the Netherlands. I think everyone likes the Dutch to come out of this group for sure. So now you have Austria, Ukraine, and what I'm reading a lot as a sleeper in North Macedonia. What is your take on the other team that is going to come out of Group C with presumably the Netherlands? Do you like Austria, the Ukraine, or a long shot 40-1 North Macedonia?
So the Netherlands, as you said, they're playing all 3 games at home. I'm not particularly keen on them, but they will come through this group, no problem. The team I like is Ukraine, out of those 3. They have, I think, 18 of their 26 players play for one of the 2 big clubs in Ukraine, Dynamo Kiev and Shakhtar Donetsk. And those kind of club partnerships can be very, very important at international level. When you know coaches have less time to gel their team, if it's already done for you by other managers, that can be really helpful. They've got a nice midfield. They've got Zinchenko, of course, of Man City, who generally a fullback at City, but plays a kind of really good creative midfield role for Ukraine. On the other 2 teams, Austria really disappointed at Euro 2016 as kind of dark horses, and I don't think they look that much stronger this year. North Macedonia are the weakest team in the tournament, but not the team with the smallest chance of qualification, because it's quite a nice group for them. They've got some quite decent attacking options, actually. But one problem that they've had is they pick up a hell of a lot of yellow and red cards. So that's something I'd look at. If it kind of goes wrong initially for them, if they lose their first game, they could kind of lose their heads in the other games. But yeah, I'm pretty strong on Ukraine to overperform expectations in that group.
Group, where am I at? Group E. Slovakia got into the round of 16 in 2016 as a pretty big upset. Do we think that they do it again? They've got Spain, Sweden, and Poland in that group, and they have the lowest odds. Do we like Slovakia to turn heads as they did in 2016, or is this too difficult of a group for them?
I don't think it's a particularly difficult group, but the problem that Slovakia have is they're very light on goals. If you look at the profile of their strikers, they have poor international records. They play for pretty minor clubs across Europe. They'll be solid, you know, they'll be one of these teams that likes to defends deep and goes for draws. Because actually, if you draw 3 games, you probably get through the group, which is one of the downsides, really, of the format. It kind of does just encourage defensive football. I think Spain will win this group. I would think probably Slovakia finish bottom. I think Poland v Sweden is a really interesting one. And I would be inclined to go with Sweden over Poland. Poland are quite... Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, you mentioned them at the bottom of the group. Slovakia maybe finishing at the bottom of the group. I know one of your best bets was Scotland to finish at the bottom of the group for Group D. Why is that? Do you think you think Scotland is the worst team of that group? And is that the best bet of Group D over England winning, Croatia advancing, et cetera, et cetera?
I think it would be my best bet. And it's not necessarily an anti-Scotland bet. I think the group is actually quite a bit harder than it looks for them. They do have the advantage that they played 2 of their games at home against Croatia and the Czech Republic. The issue they have, they just don't have any real pedigree up front. The problem with being a small nation is you get unusual things happening, like their 2 best players being left backs, you know, which is just kind of bad luck. They've got a decent midfield, but there isn't very much in the front 3. I'm quite keen on Czech Republic in general. They're quite a kind of powerful, they're almost a bit like a Premier League team, the Czech Republic. A lot of kind of midfield power, good kind of aggressive defending, good striker in Schick. They're the kind of team that we're quite well equipped to face Scotland, who will want to, you know, be physical. And I think if Scotland lose that opening game to the Czech Republic, which I think I fancy them to do, it'll be an uphill struggle, because England away at Wembley, there's a big gulf in class. And then when you play Croatia, it might be all over by them.
Okay. Let's get to our quick hitters, our one and dones here. We got 4. You just tell me what you think is the best. So your best bet for winning this tournament is who and why? One team.
My best bet, one team.
That's it.
Can I do 2? Can I have a long shot outsider and France?
We have some pretty strict rules on this show, but I think that's okay. Yeah.
So my best bet is France. I think they have by far the fewest weaknesses of any squad. They've got enormous squad depth. They've got the best front 3 in the tournament. Mbappe, the best young player in the world. Benzema, one of the best 2 or 3 strikers in Europe this year, and a tournament specialist in Griezmann. They've got Kante, arguably the best defensive midfielder in the world. By far the best team in my opinion. And I think the price is big because of the draw they've been given.
Did you want to give the other one?
Yeah, sure. Team? And at big prices, I'm really interested in Turkey, who are 66-1. They've got quite a nice group. They've got Italy, Wales, and Switzerland. They play 2 of their games in Azerbaijan, and Azerbaijan and Turkey are very kind of closely linked countries, and that will sort of feel like a home game to them, which I think might be something that bookies have missed a little bit. Okay. They beat Holland 4-2 recently. They've got 2 very good centre backs in Demiral and Soyuncu, 2 really kind of old-fashioned, aggressive centre backs. They've got a striker in Burak Yilmaz, who was brilliant for Lille, who shocked everyone by winning the French league. They'll be quite fun and attacking, and I think they'll be quite an enjoyable team to back. And also Turkey are very unusual. They've made until this tournament, they've only made 3 tournaments in the 21st century, but they got to the semi-finals of 2 of them.
Oh wow, okay.
So they actually, when they do, they're inconsistent, right, but when they get to tournaments, they really turn it on sometimes.
Yeah, they make the most of their appearances.
Yeah, and I think it's 6-1. It's something to.
And real quick, because I saw Wales is in their group. Wales did pretty well in 2016. They don't concern you at all for this year?
Not really. I mean, Bale was right at the peak of his powers there.
Okay.
He exceeded my expectations for Tottenham this year, but he's had 2 or 3 years of not playing, pretty bad injuries. Okay. The problem with Wales is that, like Bale, there are very few of their team who are coming off very good seasons at club level. I think they were just a lot stronger in 2016.
Fair enough. Now you brought up Lukaku for your best player prop bet. Now there's a couple different markets in terms of prop betting players. So what is your one best bet in terms of the player prop market? Is it something that we haven't discussed already? Is it something we've already discussed between the players talked about? What is your best player prop bet for the Euros this year?
I would go for Lukaku. I think Lukaku takes. I think he should be favoured ahead of Kane, to be honest. Belgium are more likely to go deeper into the tournament because of the draw than England. England could get knocked out very quickly.
Yeah.
Whereas I think I'm pretty confident that Belgium will at least make the quarterfinals. Takes penalties, brilliant form. I think he'll be right up there with a chance.
Okay. What's your best group bet? It could be a team to win. It could be a dual forecast. It can be finish at the bottom. It could be a team does or doesn't advance. What's your best group bet for the tournament?
I would say that I really like the Italy-Turkey dual forecast in Group A. They're 2 teams they're the 2 teams who contest the opening match on Friday, which I think could be I think could be a really exciting game. 2 teams I quietly fancy to do pretty well. Switzerland are always tricky. They're always organised, but Turkey, as I've said, I really like. Italy play all 3 matches at home. Really nice midfield, 2 fantastic centre backs in Bonucci and Chiellini. I think they're being underrated in general, actually, at 11-1. They always go well in tournaments.
Yeah, I wonder if that has anything to do with them not being in the World Cup recently. Definitely. Maybe that's why.
Yeah, I think definitely. But they've improved a lot since then, and they've quietly been winning, been just winning and winning and winning. I think they'll go well.
Who's your team to fade? What's the one team that everyone is high on, aka a favorite that everyone seems to be fancying, but you are not? You're not falling for that trap. What team is it that you would not touch entering this tournament?
I wouldn't touch the Netherlands. I think the Netherlands will be fine in the group because it's an easy group and they're at home. I would be very keen to oppose them, however, once they play anyone better than them, or even equal with them. I don't really rate their manager Frank de Boer. He's had some pretty difficult times at club level. Holland have always been brilliant out wide. Their strength has always been flying fullbacks and wingers. They're pretty kind of pedestrian this year. No Van Dijk will affect them in defence, and I think they'll run into trouble pretty quickly in the knockout round. Awesome,
great stuff. And Toby, you can get all of his best bets for the Euros. He's going to be doing them daily. As you know, there's at least one 2, sometimes even 3 or 4 games per day. Just depends on the schedule. So Toby is going to be giving his best bets for every single match daily for the Euros. We've already got some of Toby's stuff on our website. We've got the best bets in terms of teams. We've got best bets for group betting and player prop bets that you should consider as well. Toby, thanks so much for coming on and joining us, talk a little Euros, and get ready for Friday.
Good to talk to you.
Awesome. And I just want to remind all of you to like, subscribe to our YouTube channel, VegasInsider.com YouTube channel. And you can go on our website to get all of the handicapper betting advice for this very, very, very big and robust European football soccer tournament. But for Thom Cunningham, for Toby, we will see you guys next time. Thanks for joining us. Go out there, make some money, make some good bets, and we'll see you.